people don't know what the Northeast has to offer as a whole. And they certainly don't know what South Shields has to offer with its new dress on.
The words of Catherine Cookson, world-famous writer and voice of one of the most beautiful parts of Britain. Now, from her home, where she lives with her husband Tom, she invites you to share the pleasures of Catherine Cookson Country.
There can be few bookshelves in the country not graced by one of these, a Catherine Cookson novel. She's one of Britain's best-known and best-loved writers, and not just here. These books have been translated into 17 languages. They've sold more than 85 million copies all over the world, which is quite remarkable. But for such a prolific writer, where did all the inspiration come from? Well, from a part of Britain which is unique, and from a time which was unique. Something special which has been recreated with the help of Catherine Cookson. It all started with memories of childhood and images turning in the mind.
Life was certainly tough for the children who grew up towards the end of the Industrial Revolution, but there was warmth here too. And images etched on the mind were to have a profound effect on the little girl who wanted to write. The people of the Northeast were remembered to be brought back to life in the pages of the novels. And now the atmosphere of that time is being recreated too, as South Tyneside Council develops the Catherine Cookson Trail, a pleasure for visitors from all over Britain and abroad. On the banks of the River Tyne, this is the Gambling Man Gallery, named after the novel, and now run by Geordie artist and sculptor Bob Ollie. Visitors are invited to sign their own copies of his pictures. But for the visitors, Catherine Cookson Country is much more than a living guide to her books. It's about a part of the country which gave birth to those novels, Tyneside, an area which has such a strong and distinct character. Across the mouth of the River Tyne, this is South Shields, the heart of Catherine Cookson Country. It extends along 6 miles of enchanting coastline. There are breathtaking cliffs, wide sweeping beaches, sandy coves, and sheltered bays. To complement all this, the outstanding beauty and history of the region as a whole. The splendor of Durham Cathedral, just down the A1. The wide acres of the Northumberland National Park, which attracts 500,000 visitors a year. This is Roman wall country, and one which echoes to the very beginnings of Christianity in Britain. And now modern history is turning it all into one of the country's fastest growing tourist areas.
This is a necessary part of the country. There's something about it. There's something about the people. Well, they're not all angels, oh no. I think that the Northeast has done itself a great disservice by pushing over handicap. Because when I used to be in the South, I was there 46 years, remember. And when I mentioned, you know, I came from the North, immediately, no matter who it was, they said, oh, the handicapped country, you know? And that voice that comes from the back of the throat, you know, the handicapped country, really, near Newcastle, you know, where they carry baskets.
On the Catherine Cookson Trail, you will, of course, start right at the very beginning. St. Paul's Church, Jarrow. This is Leam Lane, where the writer was born.
As soon as the baby was born, her mother, Kate Fawcett, went back into service, leaving the child to be brought up by her grandmother Rose and her step-grandfather John MacMullen. And of course, Catherine Cookson grew up believing that her grandparents were her parents and that Katie, her big sister, when in reality she was her mother.
Just a few hundred yards away, the site of William Blackstreet, where Catherine lived from the age of 5.
And this is the kitchen which is described, the kitchen of 10 William Blackstreet. And also, they've taken a description of the kitchen which she made in our Kate, and they've reconstructed this kitchen of 10 William Blackstreet in the museum. So as she says, it's all gone. The new buildings, which is the complex of 5 streets where she lived, it's all gone.
The bus travels round South Shields Marketplace to pick up the flavour of a bustling centre. It pauses by the General Hospital where she worked.
Catherine Cookson stayed in that laundry until she left the area in 1929 at the age of 23. She went south and stayed away from the area for 46 years, but she doesn't seem to have ever forgotten us because she didn't write much about anywhere else. I think she says she wrote one novel that isn't connected with this area, so that's good going.
And the tour passes through Westow Village, also a place of memories.
At one time, all the rich industrialists of South Tyneside lived in Westow Village. Dame Flora Robson, that great British actress, was born in Westow Village, and Sir William Fox, 3 times Prime Minister of New Zealand, was born also in Westow Village, and his house is now called the Sir William Fox Hotel. Catherine Cookson mainly mentions this place in 3 of her novels, Katie Mulholland, Rooney, and in The Gambling Man.
Having read the books and you forget things, and seeing everything this morning brings it all back to you. And the people are very friendly here. We've had a super time.
I would really recommend it to anyone who was thinking of coming to this end of the country to certainly come round and have a look at these places. Really wonderful inside of life at the turn of the century, just after the turn of the century.
I enjoyed it really, it's been very nice, and I'd recommend it to anybody again, and I hope to come again, yes.
The focal point of the trail is here in Ocean Road, South Shields, where the council has reconstructed part of William Blackstreet and the kitchen of Catherine's early home. It's so fondly remembered in her autobiography, Our Kate. She wrote, "How a room the size of our kitchen could hold so much, I don't know." Catherine Cookson herself opened this part of the museum. What memories did it bring back?
I sat for hours underneath that gas jet. And you know, in those days, the gas went plop, 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 plop all the time. But I sat there reading, while my granda sat in his big chair, playing patience, cheating himself at patience at the table with his pint pot of beer. If it hadn't been for that kitchen and the tales I heard there, you see, my granddaughter, my step-granddaughter, and my grandmother were born in 1850. And I can remember my grandmother and Kate talking, discussing all kinds of things. And I would be listening with one ear while I was supposed to be reading and not listening to these other things. That's why I have a feeling for writing about the last century. And I learned a lot of things that I shouldn't have learned by listening. They said ideas like Cuddy's lugs, you know. But all these things, all the things I learned in that kitchen, I heard in that kitchen, that happened in that kitchen, has gone to the making of Catherine Cookson.
It's because of this, a protective umbrella of preservation and a desire to keep memories alive in a still tangible setting, that it's easy to conjure up a vision of Catherine Cookson's historical South Tyneside. But what of an even older Shields? Not the height of fashion these days, but a familiar sight in AD 128, when the Roman fort Arbea was in full swing. It's now being restored in the centre of South Shields. At the very heart of Christendom, St. Paul's Church in Jarrow, where Benedict Biscop founded the monastery in 681 AD, where the Venerable Bede spent his life. 1985 was St. Paul's 1300th anniversary. A special visitor made it a memorable occasion. Another royal visitor, King George V, once described this as the finest beach I've ever seen. Together with Littlehaven, the two bays form part of a 5-mile stretch of beach, coastal parks and cliffs. Five miles south, Marsden Bay. Standing proudly in its centre, Marsden Rock, rugged, windswept, but home to a vast colony of seabirds. And Marsden Grotto, a unique pub developed on the site of a smuggler's tavern.
There's a warmth, there's a belonging. It's like a huge family. You know, in any family, you've got them that disagree with each other and so on and so on. You'll find that here. And you find the sort of the class distinction. Yes, it's still here. Don't let anybody say it's not, it is. Yet, but everybody says we're all alike now. The thing is that even so, there is this, well, perhaps I'm just going on the feeling on the Tyne and Shields and Jarrow and Newcastle. But I recognized it as soon as I came back, and I knew that my 36 years in the scholastic world and the rest spent in managing a laundry, that this is what I had been missing. This intangible feeling. I can't put a name to it. Only I know that I am glad to be back among it. I am glad to feel it again.
The imagination and the energy which has gone into making South Tyneside Catherine Cookson Country is typical of people well used to expending vast amounts of energy in a constructive way. You'd expect nothing less from an area which inspires 25,000 runners to take part in the annual Great North Run from Newcastle to South Shields seafront. Or from an area which has produced Steve Cram, one of our greatest middle-distance runners.
But of course, not all of us are great athletes. But then Catherine Cookson Country caters for everyone. There's beauty, history, solitude and action. And if you'll excuse the pun, it really is a novel place for a holiday.